Now, this is a ride. I mean, all cars should look like this. Instead of the aerodynamic, everything come out of a cookie cutter and just, you can't tell the difference between a Hyundai, a Chevy, a Ford, because they all like aerodynamic.
Yeah, no, I agree. The classic Detroit iron cars like this, the body size are timeless.
You nailed it right there.
And that's why they're collectible. Nothing looks like them. Even the new Camaros don't look like this.
They tried.
They
tried.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody out there in digital land. Once again, you are here in the operating room, Dr. Beasley's operating room. So he's coined that term. And but this car, we're fixing it, not taking it apart. What the heck are you doing it?
I always like to share a couple tips, Yancy, and I got a couple of tips that have nothing to do with what we're working on. But the thing is in our detailing classes, you've seen the types of cars I bring in. They look like this, and besides all the normal topics that we would cover in a class, all the different cars we bring in, sometimes they lend themselves to teaching something that the person attending that class can take home. And in this case, a lot of these classic cars have these beautiful wiper arms. And look up there,
pretty.
But when you got a buff around them, it can be really hard. And the thing is if you're, like I'm going to be using a rotary buffer around these wiper arms, and if you were to catch this and rip it off or break it and damage the paint, you can't go down to AutoZone and get one of these.
No, that you can't.
So there's this little tool here that you can get from Napa. It's a Dorman windshield wiper removal arm.
And I'm
wrench.
not even remotely close. I'm sorry. I didn't know he was going straight into the tip.
Oh, yeah. I can wait.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so then you just kind of...
No, it just pops them right on.
It just pops it right off. Now it's out of your way. The tool's less than $10. And I work on a lot of cars like this, so this is why...
That's a very handy tool for you.
Yeah, a very handy tool for me.
So. All right, so with that little quick thing out of the way, what I would like to say, like always, is be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that other good stuff, all the different platforms, give thumbs up, all that other good things. And also... be sure to get your questions in the comments because we are going to have our question and answer at the end of this. So what we are doing here today is making red paint do what?
We're going to do our best to try to remove bird dropping etchings.
Okay, well, with that being said, I'm going to fly the coop and I'm going to get over there. So you have at it.
Okay, so this is a friend of mine. This is his 1967 Camaro convertible SS. And originally, I thought there was 5 bird-dropping etchings, but I found a fresh one, or a new one, or another one right here. So there's actually a total of 6. Now, the owner of this car, he doesn't want these etchings. So he's asked me to do my best to remove them and to not go through the clear coat. But he says, if I go through the clear coat, it's okay. He'll repaint the hood because they drive him up the wall.
They're pretty nasty looking.
Either way, he wants them gone. Okay. Now, the thing about bird dropping etchings is
show me one so that way they can see what we're doing.
This one here should be fairly easy to
get your
identify.
light.
Let me get a scroll finder light.
Well, no. Point to it so that way. No, there it is. All right, bring your light back. Oh, nope. Here, give me the light.
You take the light.
All right, there it is, right there. You see it? That's ugly.
And the paint is actually crinkled, okay? Yeah. So someone asked me, Mike, why don't you just try to buff it off? That ain't gonna work, If it's just a stain, topical stain, you probably could. But when the paint is actually altered, the only way to really make it visually disappear is to level it, and that's best done by sanding, either wet sanding or dry sanding. So I am a big, huge fan of the Eagle Abrasives by KOVAX, or Eagle Abrasives by KOVAX sanding discs. And we cover this topic in our 3-day classes. It's the topic for the second day. You have to take the first day if you want to take the second day. You just can't come take the second day. But we cover the hand sanding, and machine sanding. And so for this, I'm going to start out with I'm going to try a 2500 grit first. You always want to use the least aggressive process or product to get the job done. And the part that everybody forgets to add to that little cliche is the reason you do that is to leave the most paint on the car.
Agreed.
So I'm going to try the 2500. I've already been using this disc. You can see some clear coat on there. See that?
All right, but
I'm going to take this one off.
As you see, why do you have Crayolas?
Oh, thanks for reminding me. So this is a little tip that I use for myself whenever I'm doing what I call surgical buffing, surgical detailing. And as I get busy here, I got a remember where they're at and track them down. So instead, I got my big old fatty bunch of Crayola jumbo crayons, and they come in multiple colors. So if you're working on different color cards, you can kind of pick a color that works for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the yellow here, and I'm going to draw a big old circle around each one of these spots. And that way, I can still get my 3-inch disc in here, but the wax there is going to show me where the actual...
And you're not damaging the paint by
No,
doing
and I'm going to buff this out anyway. Here's the other one. Here's the one that I didn't know I had until today. And then up here by the Fresh Air Grill, there's one right there. Kind of going into that gentle
Ooh, you're
curve
gonna
there.
that one.
And I think that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6. So anyway, that's just my crayon trick. Now, some other places I use this also is after I've buffed out a car, sometimes I will go around, if there's some rids, random, isolated, deeper scratches, I'll go around and mark them all. Then I'll come back and put a little more effort to try to get them out.
Okay.
On
so
factory,
visually, you see it.
yeah, so you know where they're at. Plus, it's just faster to go around and mark them and then start working on the car than to work on the car, look to see where they're at and buff them, look to see where they're at. It's just faster. And another place I use is if I do a complete sand on a car. The hardest part about sanding down an entire car is removing 100% of your sanding marks. And most often you'll find them next to edges or into curves or tight areas because they're harder to buff. I always tell people, don't put sanding marks where you can't put a spinning buffer, okay? We can't put that spinning head or you're gonna have to come back and take them out by hand. But anyway, so I'll use the crayon trick for highlighting sanding marks I need to go back around and get out because usually it's kind of impossible to do 100% defect removal the first time around. So you want to go back and check your work. Anyway, so now that I've marked them, the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and put a fresh sanding disc on. Now, one thing I just want to point out to people, this is the Flex PXC 80, or as I call it, the Pixie. And when you purchase one of these, it comes with a rotary unit. It comes with a 12 millimeter unit.
Just leave them down there.
And it comes with a 3 millimeter unit. And a couple years ago, I asked Flex to make me a 6 millimeter unit. And the reason why is because the rotary, you can't really sand with rotary because when you sand with rotary, that's not sanding, it's grinding. The 3 millimeter is so anemic, it's really hard to maintain sanding disc rotation with a 3-inch or even a 2-inch disc. And the 12 millimeter, the orbit stroke is so big, you can't sand next to an edge without hitting the edge. Therefore, then when you go to buff, you'll probably burn through. So they just needed a smaller, tighter orbit stroke, and they made this 6-inch one for me. I got one already in here, and anyway, they work great with these sanding discs. So I got a 3-inch pad, and then if you look, I've got an interface pad. Okay, this is the Eagle Abrasives or KOVAX interface pad. What the interface pad does is actually helps to maintain sanding disc rotation. It smooths out the action of the sanding, and of course it compresses because it's got a foam interface there, so it'll allow for the curve of the car because no panel on this car is absolutely 100% flat. So it just kind of helps in that area. Okay, so let's grab a 3-inch disc and get right at it. I want to center this up, and I'm going to tackle that one that's easy for you to see. And dry sanding, normally you'd want to wear a dust mask or a respirator of some sort. For this small amount, I'm not going to worry about it because it looks horrible on camera. Okay, so I'm just going to take and turn this on, and I want to bump this down to 1. And then usually what I teach in my classes and I practice is you would take and place this down and see if you got sanding pad rotation. You don't need it to spin like a, crazy, but you do want to see a little bit of rotation versus no rotation at all. So I'm going to put this down here and just kind of sand. And I really don't have any sanding rotation, but you can tell I'm already getting quite a bit of paint off there. So I'm going to bump this up to 2. It has a little digital speedometer, digital speed setting right there. I'm going to come down and just hit it again. You see the sanding disc rotate there, Yancy? Mm-hmm. Just barely. Okay, let's wipe this. Let's look at the back of this. Whoa, look at all that white paint that's coming off. That's clear coat. So anytime you scratch something clear, say like glass, you ever seen frosted glass? Because it's been, when they make it frosty, it turns out whitish or opaque. Same thing, when you sand something clear, it turns white. So you just take and turn this on, hold that against your pad, boom, it's clean. And we'll come back down here and inspect it. You know what? To me, that looks like it's 100% defect removal. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to see red paint on my buffing pad over here. So I know a lot of people are always curious about paint thickness. We should have done this before, but at this point right now, let me turn this thing on. It's 8.3, but let's test this one I haven't sanded here. So I'm right on that. It's 13.2. And let's see, let's try out this one. 12.3. 22.0. So this paint is custom and it's just all over the place. So a paint thickness gauge is what I call a go. It's a tool for making that go or no-go decision. Either I'm going to do something, sand it, buff it, whatever, or no, I think it's so thin, I don't even want to mess with it. Or maybe all I will do for the car is to polish it. I won't compound it because maybe I think the paint is so thin. But I use a paint thickness gauge to make the go, do it, or no go, don't do it decision. And again, the owner of this car, he said, look, I want the bird droppings out of there. If you can't get them out, I'm just going to repaint it, so go for it.
Okay, let's do another one. Come on.
Okay, so let's do another one. Let me grab my dusting towel here. Okay, we'll come right up here. Now I'm still on the 2. I'm just going to bring this down. And you can still see some of the etching, can't you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
The shiny parts are the lowest parts of where the crinkle is. So let me just hit that again. Now what do you see, Yancy? You know, I can see a faint.
There's a little bit left on that one too.
Just a little bit.
Lines.
We'll just go in here and just give it a little love, a little sanding love. You know, usually when I make videos, Yancy, I don't like to wear glasses, you know, because I want to look my best. But I'm nearsighted, so when I'm doing surgical work, it's important I really see what I'm doing.
You got to be able to see.
So for cars like this, of course, I would wear my glasses. For cars like yours, I'd put a blindfold on and then sand your car down.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, let's try this one. Now, this is going to be tricky. This is a technique I use. Now, watch this. I'm actually going to go up on edge. I'm not going to sand the whole thing. I'm just going to come down here and kind of flutter over that. And I want to stay away from the edge there because, as we all know, boom, that's gone.
Right,
as we all know, sanding takes off paint, compounding takes off paint, polishing takes off a little paint. Pretty soon, you're going to see red paint when you're that close to an edge because you're going to burn through the edge.
Well, that one was, 22, so you got a little ways to go.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, that one was 13.2. Grab, go ahead and fix it totally.
Yep. Okay, I'm just going to do a little feathering here with it. You know, I wrote an article called Feather Sanding probably like 15 years ago. And it kind of talked about what I'm doing here. Just lightly coming in and just kind of feathering.
All right, now grab your...
Gone. Okay.
Paint thickness. I'm not moving, so there's no editing. Right there, behind your polish.
Oh, there we go.
All right, that was 13.2, if I remember correctly.
12.4.
12.4, go back to this one.
23.
That one actually gained.
Well, 22.7.
All right, so
I wasn't right on it. We'll check out this one. Do you remember what this one was?
I think that was like 13, 12 something. Yeah, go to this one. This one was 8, remember?
Yeah, well, I did this before you got here. 8.
Yeah, so barely anything, if anything.
Doing very little. Let me go ahead and get this one since I'm here. See, it's still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you actually got some pitch right there too.
Yeah, a little DIP, dirt and paint. And of course, I went around and got really good high resolution before shots just to remind the owner. Now, there's just barely a trace there. It's really hard to see. And what I usually do is I try to get really close, but I don't go 100% and then come back because you remember taking a compounded wool pad on a rotor, he's going to take a little paint off too. Now, this one's going to be a little tricky because we got a very nice convex.
Yeah, it's not flat.
It's not flat. Like a surgeon. Okay. See it still there?
I can't see it.
Mostly gone though.
All right.
A little bit more. People, I say, do you ever get nervous doing this stuff? And I say, heck yeah. But I don't know. I always have confidence in the products I'm using, sanding discs, the compounds, the tools. You know, and experience goes a long ways too. Okay, so at this point, the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to give this a quick wipe. You know, we want to make sure any paint is removed from these areas. And we also want to make sure that any sanding particles that may have come off the disc have been removed.
That way you don't pick them up.
And earlier this morning, I washed this car and clayed the hood. This car is actually going in for some minor service work. And when it's all done, they're going to bring it back and I'll do all the paint correction and give it a fresh ceramic coating. Okay, so now it's time to do a little work with the rotary. Now, I put this together earlier. It's not quite centered on there. And I always tell people it is so worth it to spend the time and get that thing centered. Because otherwise it feels like a flat tire on a car going down the road because it's not centered. And even though I don't know where this pad's been, I mean, for all I know, it could have been on the ground today. I don't know. So I always clean my pad with a spur. So important. You know what happens if you got one little particulate in there, you buff with this pad?
You get little pigtails.
Here's a term for everybody. It's called an arc, A-R-C, an arc scratch. You'll go around and you put arc scratches everywhere in the car, and then you get the fun of coming back and taking them out. So clean your pads often. Okay, little showmanship there. So now we're going to use the Dr. Beasley's NSP 150, and I'm just going to put some right on top of that. And my pad is dry, so you got to remember my pad's going to absorb some of that liquid. So some of you going, Mike, that's way too much. Well, my pad is dry. My pad's going to absorb a little bit. So I'm just going to come in here and smush it around a little bit.
Technical term?
That is a technical term. There. So I've got it spread out. I like to use this. This is, notice the two different colors here. This is actually a prototype they sent me before they launched this tool. And I've left out so many cars with it. And it's actually not even a production tool, it's a prototype. Okay, so Yancy, I've never worked on this car before, so I don't know if it has hard paint or soft paint. Mm-hmm. But that scratch came out, that sanding mark, 2500 grit, came out fairly easily. You saw I didn't even press on the rotary. It's gone. Okay, so let's go to the next one. No red paint.
No red paint.
Knock on urethane. Little dab will do you. Little dab. Little dab. One more for good measure. Okay. Now, same thing. I'm just going to come down here and feather the trigger here just a little bit. Swish my product around a little bit. Go this way. And what that's doing is it's getting the product onto this clean, dry pad. Now, the cordless flex tools, they are so easy to use.
It looks like you're having a hard time.
You know, I always tell people, if you can make something look easy, it probably is easy. Okay, let's see if we got them all out there. They are gone. Any red paint?
No.
No red paint. Okay. Let's come down here. Use this like a scalpel. I'm going to go this way. I can just come right along here.
Isn't it what you want to do is you want to go off the panel, not under the panel?
Well, I'm just going to run along it, but I will talk about the buff off and edge technique. But mostly I wanted to make sure, even though you see fibers here, there's no pressure behind them. The inner cup there is about 1 inch in, so I can get right up next to it. And they're gone. Okay. Yeah, there's a technique called buffing off an edge. So here's an edge, and that always means when you look at your pad and it's spinning, as you look down on it clockwise, this would be buffing off an edge. If I come at it this way, it grabs it and it yanks the tool out of my hand. So learn how to buff off an edge. Not only is it safer for the car, it makes you look like a pro. So in my classes, Yancy, nowadays the first tool I teach is the rotary. By 9 o'clock, you will have a rotary in your hand using a tool just like this. And we do extreme paint correction. So it's, or multiple step, however you want to look at it. But what I always call show car detailing. You know, we're going to try to take as many defects out as we can. That one's gone. 2 more. Okay, let me go up on this side. It's kind of hard with the lights to see, but I think I got them all.
I'm not seeing anything from my angle.
Nope, they're gone.
All right,
And just to make sure,
your last one.
when someone's going to say, Mike, shouldn't you clean your pad more often? Sure, I always clean my pad. I've cleaned it more than anybody I've ever seen. My good friend Mike Pennington always drilled into my brain, work clean, work clean. And he's right, got to work clean. Okay, I don't want to spray your camera. Whoops, a little messy that time. That's okay.
You had one job.
Oh, I forgot a technique tip. I'll share it anyway. So I got to buff out the whole hood here. Let's check it out. Gone. Okay. So the other technique tip I wanted to share was when you're working on these classic cars, like with the Valiant behind you, the 1982 Eagle Pacer up there, and this 68 Camaro, they have what they call a fresh air grill. So this is where fresh air would go into your air conditioning or your fresh air vents, you know, as you're driving down the road. And I hate taping these off with masking tape. I even got low tack tape because here's why. When it comes to painting a car, and Yancy, you're a car painter, you know this. It's easy for the people to prep this big flat area, get it really prepped up, primered, and the paint's going to stick good. This becomes more difficult, and a lot of times you put tape on there and pull it off, you'll pull the paint off. So what I have instead is if I put a dry cloth up here and cover this up, you know, fold this in a way to cover that up, the spinning air current from my pad will yank it and throw it off the car. So what I do is I get a towel, this is wet. I get it wet, not dripping wet, but wet. Now it has some weight to it. And I'll sit it like this, so as I'm buffing here, I don't throw splatter dots down inside this fresh air grill. And whenever I go to a car show, one of the first things I do when I see cool cars is I look to see if the guy that buffed it out covered it up. If he did it, you'll see white dots everywhere. And how are you going to clean that out? Don't be that guy.
Very difficultly.
Don't be that guy. So cover everything up.
All right, okay. So now we're done with the compounding?
Yep. So now we need to pull out our holograms. The holograms were not caused by the Dr. Beasley's NSP 150. This uses abrasive technology that's 1.5 microns in size, smaller than a human hair, I believe. But it's the fibers, these fibers as they're spinning.
Put it up against your shirt.
Yeah, they cut in the paint. They put a cut in the paint. That's why I always tell people it's okay to start with wool on a rotary, just don't finish with wool or any kind of fiber pad on a rotary because you'll tend to leave hologram scratches behind. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my favorite tools, Red Beast Inside. And this is paint buffed out pretty easy. I'm just going to grab a foam polishing pad, and just like the rotary, I'm going to center that up. And this is a 8mm gear-driven polisher, and you can see what 8mm looks like by looking at the two diameter circles there.
There you go.
Yeah. See, they got the outer perimeter and the inner perimeter, and that distance in between there, that's 8mm. If I were to grab my Rupes 21 back there and did that, you'd see this huge inner perimeter and outer perimeter. Okay.
Would it be 21 millimeters?
Yes, be 21 millimeters, and so on and so on. Okay, this is brand new, so I got to pull the seal off. So this is the NSP 95. This is actually a fine cut polish. But I found that paint to be just a little bit on the soft side. And because the pad is dry, I'm going to overuse the product just a little bit. But once this pad becomes damp with product, then you can cut your product use way down. Okay, let's just go in the same order. Cord over shoulder so you don't drag it against the paint. Spread my product out. Did you see any red paint on my pad? I didn't look.
Nope.
Whew, that is a good sign. Boom.
Okay.
I'll give you $100 when you find that bird dropping at you.
All right, where's your light?
Get you the light. Here you go.
Here, let me do it.
There. I'll let you. I'll just turn it on for you. Yeah. It's gone.
It was right there.
It's gone.
All right.
Okay.
And here, I'm going to...
Next.
All right, hold on. See,
okay.
Now you can see the holograms.
See the holograms?
Okay, now go.
You wipe the dust off. Not going to add any more product. just the weight of the machine. So it's basically 5 passes.
And no holograms.
No holograms and no bird dropping etching. Okay,
All right.
then we're back up to here. At this point, I am going to drop a pea-sized drop onto the pad. You know, whenever you're polishing,
pea-sized drop.
I'm not a big pea-sized drop guy, but you know, the thing about that is it has 2 things. People always forget. There's abrasive technology and lubrication. Okay, you need the lubrication so you don't scour the paint. Remember, we're here to create beauty. It's not a grinding process. 2, 3, 4. Bring my pressure up. 5 passes. You know, I got to buff out the rest of this hood before I go home tonight. Boom, everything's gone.
All right.
Okay, let me go ahead and knock out. There was the one right here. You can go back. I'll buzz these out. Gone. And right there. For anybody that's never used a gear-driven tool, one of the cool things about it is when you go up on edge or you're working into a curve, there's no pad stalling. As I like to say, it's all brawl, no stall. Hologram's gone. Bird dropping completely gone. Last one right up here. Boom. That's how it's done. The one thing, though, I had working for me was this is a custom paint job. So something that I wrote an article about years ago, you can Google this, clear coats are thin, add my name, Mike Phillips. But I talked with Dr. David Gadusi because he helped to invent clear coat paints.
Dr. G!
Dr. G. Most people call him Dr. G because they can't remember how to say his last name, and no one can remember how to spell it. So as a writer, I try to nail those things. But he told me that they did testing, and their testing showed that they needed to apply at least 2 mils of urethane clear to protect the entire matrix. That's the only time I could use that word matrix besides watching the movie. The matrix is all the different layers of the paint, the base coat, the clear coat, the E-coat, the primer. The whole thing is called the matrix. And it takes the 2 mils to protect the entire matrix. If they put less than 2 mils on from the factory, the chances of having clear coat failure grow exponentially. So I know clear coat paints are getting thinner and thinner, but we have to just hope that they're still putting the 2 mils of clear. They've found ways to put thinner primers, E-coats, and base coats on and still have a great looking finish. But you can take a Post-it note and you hold that between your finger and your thumb. And an average Post-it note is about 3 mils. It's about 3 mils, okay? And a factory finish on your car is about 2 mils. So what I tell people to do is grab a Post-it note, hold it between your thumb and your finger, because you can wrap your brain around how thin that is, and then here's the thought. Your clear coat on a factory finish is thinner than a Post-it note. So
you remember when we were over in England?
Yeah.
Kelly Harris actually measured a $1 bill, and that is 3 mils.
3 mils?
Yeah, so if you have a $1 bill, there you go.
Just hold it between your fingers. You can tell how thin it is. But yeah, so I was able to do this, and again, let me just show this. There is no red paint on either pad. So we didn't go through the clear coat at any point. We removed 100% of the bird dropping etchings. The owner's going to be thrilled. He doesn't got to pay to have the hood repainted.
Yeah,
try to get a color
him
match.
a bunch of bucks.
Oh yeah. And try to get a color match. You know?
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just saved him a bunch of bucks. Because if it didn't match, then guess what? He's repainting the entire car.
Exactly.
And that's not cheap.
So the question then is, can you do this type of work to factory finish? Yeah, you can, but you really want to be careful. You know, the Eagle Abrasives, they go up in the 3-inch disc to 3,000 grit. So I mean, you could go to 3,000. You could also get Trizac 5,000 and just try to sometimes maybe not completely remove it, Yancy, but improve it, you know, to the point where your eye isn't drawn to it.
I hear you. right, you have any other tips or anything
That's
like
kind
that?
of, I shared 3 great tips. You know, another tip I'll share, I'm not going to do it. Well, I could do it real quick. You know, whenever I buff these classic convertibles out, you know, and you seasoned detailers, you guys know what I'm talking about. When you pull the top off, this chrome, sometimes it's stainless, sometimes it's nickel, but this top piece of the windshield, if you look at it, it just looks horrible. And it never gets any attention. So what I just do is whatever my first step process is, I just take and run my polisher over it. And it'll peel off years and years of tarnish, and in this case, some rust and oxidation. And it just generally makes it look shiny like the rest of the car is going to look when I finish this detail. So it's just it's one of those finishing touches.
All right, you going to stay there, or are you going to
I'm going to walk back up to my cart, but I thought I'd wipe this off just to be professional.
Right. So find your landing spot so you can take some questions.
Okay.
All right, is that your landing spot?
All
right, we're on camera 1 now, over there.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to be the voice from the nether for a little bit, but I'm going to read your guys' comments and put them on the screen, so just want to let you know I'm the nether voice. Okay, we have Humberto is always here. He is ready to roll. Okay, there we go.
First from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, first from Puerto Rico. He is always here. We have Kyle coming in. I'm rolling to Dr. B headquarters. Ooh, hey, somebody's on their way. Oh, wow. All right, we have Steve Austin. Greetings from St. Vincent and the Gradiness, everyone. Grenades. I don't know how to say that. Sorry.
Howdy. Thanks for watching.
Okay, here's Steve Austin on here. My first encounter with bird drop etchings was about 5 years ago on a Toyota wagon that was my client imported. Factory paint. I started wet sanding with 3,000 to see what results would I get. And that's where he left it.
So.
Oh, wait, what? Hold on, there's the second half. Eventually, I ended up wet sanding with 1500 grit and went through the clear. Luckily, it was a small area. I was wet sanding and as careful as I could.
So that's pretty common. In my life in the detailing industry, which dates to at least 1987 to 2023. Hell, it's like 30 years, 40 years. But for a large part of it, when forums were first invented, so way before Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope, TikTok, all that stuff.
Periscope.
I got paid to answer questions. Okay, that was my job. I detail cars, I teach classes, and answer questions. And I cannot count how many times someone's come up and that had a scratch in their factory finish that was bothering them, and they said, "Hey, I'm going to sand this out. Can I get some advice?" And my first piece of advice is, before you start sanding, take that car to your local body shop and get an estimate as to what it's going to cost to repaint that panel, because that's going to scare the bejeebies out of you. So maybe you'll not go to 1500 grit, and instead learn how to improve, but maybe not completely remove these deeper defects, because they just don't give us enough paint to work with. But yeah, when you start sanding, because you always got to remember, compounding or sanding takes off paint, compounding takes off paint, and polishing takes a little paint off. So you got 3 processes taking some paint off. And if you got nothing to start with, chances are good you could go through the clear. And what happens when you go through the clear, if you're watching this video and never done it before, is the base coat on most paint systems is dull, it's flat. The gloss comes from when they add the clear coat. So when you break through the clear coat and expose the base coat, all of a sudden you see a dull patch, little tiny dull patch. And usually you're going, oh, I better keep buffing to buff that out. But the problem is you keep buffing, it grows because you're peeling clear off the base coat. And at that point, stick a fork in it, kick it out the door, it's game over.
And that perfectly leads me into this comment, optical clarity detailing. Hey, what's the measurements on the paint? If you rewind, we did all that, then we showed you the before and the after. So that was a great thing. But we're coming right back in with another question. I'm not even going to try to say your name. Could you simply use a heat gun to remove the etchings?
First of all, in the second how-to book I wrote, one of the things I talked about was called destructive paint polishing. And I asked 4 experts in the industry, including my longtime friend Jason Rose at Rupes. And all the experts, all 4 of them said that you shouldn't get paint hotter in a range from 160 to 180 degrees. So using a heat gun on urethane paint is already a bad idea from the get-go. And if the idea is to somehow melt it and reflow it, these are catalyzed cure coats. They're like epoxy. They're set up. I don't believe they're going to reflow. I know a lot of people see people taking heat guns to urethane plastic bumpers and making them look better, but then they go back to how they looked. But please don't try that on paint. Not a good idea.
No bueno.
I would never do it.
I
would never do it. I would watch someone else do it, but I wouldn't.
All right, here's another one. This is from James S. What's the minimum paint thickness for a no-go on sanding or compounding?
Well, if it's factory paint, it's kind of already no-go. On this one here, this is a custom paint job, and I took readings before we started, and I had a range of anywhere from 24 mils down to 8 mils. So the lowest measurement I got was 8 mils. So that tells me that you got to keep in mind all the paint thickness gauges on the market, unless you really spend a boatload of money, which also means you're going to invest a lot of time. They only measure total film build. So when I measure the lowest point up on this hood was 8 mils. That's the primer, the base coat, and the clear coat. So I have no idea how thick the actual clear coat is. Maybe there's a lot of base coat on there. Here's what I did. I crossed my fingers. I used great products. I used the right pads to go with the products, and I used quality tools, and I got experience. And as I like to say, knock on urethane, I got lucky. But if you just joined us, the cool thing about this project was I was able to show you a lot of different tools and processes, and if something would have went wrong, the owner said it would be okay. He would have it repainted because he did not want those bird dropping etchings in this car of his. He's got a bunch of classics, and they all look spot on. Good question. But the answer to that is if I'm working on a custom paint job and I start seeing paint down in the 5 and 6 mils, I do start to get a little sketchy on those.
Sketchy. All right, here's another question. It's coming from Sarah. Would there be any difference if wet sanding, or is it best to dry sand all the etching?
Oh, I love that question. You know, for years when I was at McGuire's, I taught hand wet sanding using the Eagle Abrasive papers, which it's a great process. The benefit to dry sand is you can see your progress instantly just by wiping with the microfiber towel. You don't have slurry. So slurry is the water mixed with the paint you're abrading off. If you're wet sanding clear coat, it looks like milk water. If you were wet sanding a single stage paint job and the paint job was blue, it'd look like blue water. But the slurry starts to drip and drain into everywhere on the floor. It's a big mess. And in order to see your progress, you got to wipe a whole bunch of times and finally get that water to dry off the surface and evaporate, so you can now actually see, have I reached my goal? Can I move on, or do I need to keep sanding? So dry sanding is just faster and cleaner. So
yeah.
And when you've got but I could have wet sanded, and the Eagle Abrasives can be used wet, so I could have done that. It's just cleaner.
Let me just chime in here on that. I know from a body man side of it, the painter side, is that I like wet sanding panels that are off of a car, because then I don't have to worry about all the slurry where it's going and everything like that. And plus I keep because what I'm usually doing is I'm removing orange peel, leveling the paint to put on another coat of clear, and getting it where it's perfect. So the thing is, I get able to keep my panel cooler wet sanding than I would be if I was dry sanding. So there's a side to everything, it's just how you're doing it. But like Mike's saying, if you're working on a car where it's already put together, dry sanding is what I would do.
Yeah, so we teach dry sanding for our car detailing classes. We teach machine wet sanding for our boat detailing classes, and there's reasons for that are totally opposite of dry sanding. It has to do with when if you're going to sand down a 26-foot, like we just did, a 26-foot Mako that's extremely oxidized, has what I call deep oxidation. The oxidation goes deep. You're going to be sanding off a lot of this old oxidation. That was a 1990 Mako. That makes it, 33 years old?
Yep.
That's a deep oxidation. So what happens is you're sanding, it's going to start loading up on your sanding disc. If it's dry, it'll just clog it up, and you'll pitch it and grab another one. When you use water and you put a little soap in your fresh water supply, that soap creates a surface on the sanding disc that doesn't actually grab onto and hold the gel coat you're sanding off. So it sands cleaner and it sands longer, so you get a better bang for your buck. You know, sanding isn't a cheap process. And a lot of times when I teach people there's
cheap
nothing cheap about it at all. So if you ever get to the position where you're going to sand down a boat, do extreme boat detailing like we teach here, or you're going to sand down someone's cool car because it's got orange peel, you better look up the prices of all the tools you're going to need because they aren't cheap. And
unless you want to do it all by hand. Then it's just going to be a lot of labor.
But still, even like the sanding, it's like the Eagle.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but now you're not having to buy tools and stuff.
I just put an order in for everything we need for our next class, and it came to $1,500. So just for sanding supplies.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, I love this. Grant, you're making me laugh today. Another great Dr. Mike and Nurse Yancy video. I'm going to go with medical assistant. I think that's the way I'm going to go with.
No, I like Nurse
assistant.
Yancy. Where's your outfit?
Yeah, I know, right?
Sexy nurse outfit.
No. Okay. All right.
Halloween's coming
up. Bad. All right. Jose Salazar. Hello from Cal, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas. Is it possible to use a dual action polisher as opposed to a rotary buffer? Thank you in advance, guys.
For taking the sanding marks out?
Yes.
Yeah. No, you could. Look, any polisher that can maintain, adequate pad rotation and oscillation, if it's a free spinning tool or a gear driven tool like I'm using here, if it can remove swirls and scratches, it can remove sanding marks. But for me, it's just faster to use a wool pad on a rotary. Plus, over the last 20 or 30 years, when I've tried to do that type of work using an orbital, and I come back the next day or the next week, it never looks right. It's like, it looks like the sanding marks are gone, but then the paint comes back and it looks hazy after a few days or maybe a couple weeks pass. So here's what I think. Just get in and do it right the first time. Use a wool pad on a rotary polisher with a great compound and just knock it out. So a lot of times when I'm doing cars like this, I don't get a chance to see him again. So the last thing I want is the owner to call me and say, hey, this doesn't look right, and he's in another state. That's not going to work very good. So
that was a great segue, because I've just got done flipping up some of your guys' comments on there. And if you can, put your location on there, because I'd like to start making a little map.
Add on that, and just to share, we've got a class coming up in about 3 weeks, and it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday class. And Friday, we're going to go over a lot of basics, safety, where the bathrooms are, just basic stuff. But by 9 a.m., I will have a rotary polisher in all the students' hands working on something cool like this. They're going to build the foundation for the 3 days, starting with what most people consider the hardest tool, maybe not to use, but the hardest tool to master, okay? But as we progress through the rest of the day on Friday, and then again on Saturday, and again on Sunday, you're going to keep coming back and using that tool, and you've already laid the foundation for it. So that's why I start with the rotary in all my classes.
Okay, going back to what I was saying. If you guys are here, post where you guys are coming from, because what I like to do is I like to get a map. You get a map. Then we'll put little pins where everybody's tuning in at. The reason why is the person that I wasn't able to, I don't know how to say your name. I am so sorry. I'm just going to call you BFL. All right, he's tuning in from Algeria.
Oh, cool.
So we have, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. But yeah, if you can, just do that. That's amazing. So that way you can see where you guys are coming in at.
So next week, just to scare everybody, Yancy's gone, and I'm flying solo with our brand new Sony camera, which is also filming over there.
Oh, it's over here. It's that camera.
The car that's right off to my side here is a 1960 Plymouth Valiant, and I've already washed it and clayed it, and the entire thing is swirled out, and I've been asked to get it ready for a Concours d'Elegance. They want to show this off out on the field on a sunny day, and they want it to look perfect. So I'm going to go over the process I would use to dial in my test spot and then buff out the car. And I've already done a test spot. It is single stage, so that makes it to me just a little bit more risky, just because like the last thing I want to do is hit primer, because it's going to show up on this orange-red car. Okay, speaking of that, see, you're segueing and really get into my things here. All right, this is Humberto, first from Puerto Rico. I remember the first time using a rotary on what I expected to be clear coat. Then when I lifted the pad, I saw red color, but the car was shiny, so I figured out it was single stage. Single stage, yeah.
It's a good way to get your heart pumping.
I tell you, man, when you're using a rotary and you go through the clear and you're buffing and you turn that over and you see the base coat on the pad, words cannot describe the heart-sinking feeling that overcomes you as your mind starts to race and you start to extrapolate out, oh my gosh, I just went through the clear. I probably got to buy this guy a paint job if it's someone else's car. If it's your own car, hey, still got to buy a paint job.
We got Bunny back.
Which camera am I looking at? I forgot.
You're at this camera over here.
Camera 1, okay.
Great show, guys. Love this each week. Bunny, he's back.
Right on.
All right. Hello. I just wanted to thank you so much because your videos helped me so much. Aw. That was Hussam. And
this is what I like about these. This is the real deal. Okay, so much of what I've seen over the last couple decades online is what we call mock-up in the TV world. It's not real. It's just
Hussam
mocked
was
up.
tuning in from the Middle East.
Gotcha.
So we got the Middle East coming in. We have Virginia, Into Details from Sterling, Virginia. And I think I've got all your guys' questions here. I truly think I did. All right, so let's go to that camera.
Okay.
You're gonna be on that camera.
This is a fun project.
This was a fun project,
Yeah.
and the nice thing about it is you didn't
Break through the clear.
you didn't break through the clear.
No.
You saved the guy money,
Yeah.
so that's always a good thing.
Shared at least 3 tips: the crayon, the sander, the wiper arm,
The tool,
the little tool, for,
and the ever famous Post-it note tip. I've heard that. I don't know how many times I've heard that.
called Dorman, D-O-R-M-A-N, Dorman. So wiper
Dorman
arm
for the windshield.
Yeah, Dorman. You just grab it like that and you compress it and it lifts right off.
All right. So with that, I am going to be, like I said, or he said, I'm going to be gone next week. He's going to be doing a little solo action. Then we're both out in SEMA the following week.
Yep, that's right, SEMA.
All right. Then we'll be back for another one. Then I'm gone the following week. Then we have 2 other ones coming up after that. So just check the socials. We'll make sure, Mike will make sure that you're posted, knowing when and where the live classes will be. Don't forget to sign up for his class, which is coming up when?
Yeah, it's November 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we've actually structured it. Some people don't want to take the boat class. That's fine. Just take the first 2 days. You can actually just take the first day, but you can't take the second day if you don't take the first day.
That camera over there.
Yeah, I'm not going to let people come in and sand and buff on somebody's car until I know they've got the skills that we teach on Friday. And if you just want to take the boat, I got people that reach out to me all the time. I just want the boat. That's on Sunday. But in order to get signed up for that, there's no real page for it. You got to give me a personal call on my cell phone, 760-515-0444.
You need like a good catch tune to that, you know, like A.G. Wentworth, well, you know how they have their little thing?
Yeah.
You need to come up with something, I'm telling you. All right, so like always, thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate you guys tuning in from overseas, because it's probably really early in the morning, or, yeah, it's probably really early in the morning.
Yeah, it'd be
or mid-morning.
after midnight, I think, yeah.
So with that, Mike, you saved the guy. I'm going to go get you a cape.
Yep, now I just got to buff out the whole hood. So at least the hood looks good till the car comes back. And that's